Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's BraveCat here once again with another Frontier Signals update. So I'll start things off as usual with the space weather, where things are again looking pretty quiet, at least when it comes to things happening on the side facing Earth. And when we look down at this chart here, the phi angle seems to still be kind of jumping around back and forth, which is a little bit strange, but we have not really had any turbulence in the magnetic field there. So there's at least that. And looking at this here, there isn't much going on, but there does seem to be quite a few filaments all around here. So those were from yesterday, those little filament eruptions there. And then so far today, there hasn't been anything like that, but there is a lot of these little active regions and quite a bit of magnetic stuff going on here. We could even look at the magnetic field lines. Let's see, I like looking at this one here. And so these are looking pretty strong and pretty dense, but there hasn't been anything coming out of that. So looking at really quickly here the LASCO and GOES 19 chronographs here, it's kind of hard to tell, but there may have been another potential eruption on the far side. There was a little bit of a glitch here right around 16, and then you can kind of just slightly see a little bit of something come out of there. But again, I'm not really sure, but when you do look at the LASCO feeds, they do another weird skip at around that same time here. So it does skip again, and then you do kind of just slightly see something coming out of there on the left side. But really, we just gotta wait and see what these sunspots are going to be looking like when they come face us. So I was able to get this image here on the website, which is pretty neat. So this is literally showing the backside view of the sun, and this is using an interesting method here, which I have the description for it down here below. So it's basically using sound waves generated by solar activity. And so they're basically looking into the other side of the sun using those waves. And we can see these dark spots here are going to be the sunspots that are on the far side. So this one over here on the right side is going to be the closest to what we're going to see first. So right here, this kind of split here is looking at the western limb. So that's going to be looking at the left side here. Just behind there is this huge, colossal sunspot here. So we need to see what that looks like. But honestly, I don't know if we're ready for it. I just have some sort of feeling that it's not going to be good. But I guess we do still have a few days going into next week here to see what that's all about. And other than that, there hasn't been a whole lot here. The aurora forecasts look a little bit above average compared to normal, but since we already know what's happening with Earth's magnetic field, at this point that's going to become the new norm. So, moving on from that and going back to the earthquakes going on here. So, we finally have some activity going on with the tremor map here and the slow slip events, and we do have some more activity going on in the Pacific Northwest, specifically up here in Alaska. So there was a 6.1 that struck up here, and it was pretty shallow. So there's a lot of aftershock events coming from it. And then I was looking over here at the global incident map where, well, first of all, yeah, I was wrong. I don't know why I thought that the USGS wasn't a part of these feeds. It's because I was reading this stuff down here, and I was like, oh, what, the CIA? Yeah, I guess they probably use this, but the feeds are still from a lot of the normal sources, although there is a few others on here, including Geophon or GeoNet. So, seems like it should be a pretty reliable source here, and it looks like something just struck. I don't think this was on here 2 seconds ago here. Well, okay, I guess it was. Well, let's look at the details on that really quickly here. Okay, it doesn't look like a deep event. But there is some weird things on here that I'll have to get used to. So when you have multiple different agencies covering the same earthquake, you're going to get these duplicates. However, and I have this sorted by magnitude for the last 72 hours. And so we have 2 reports from the 7.1, just from two different agencies, but it's the same exact earthquake. And then, but we have 3 here. So the USGS reported a 6.1 in Alaska, and then also reported a 6.3 at 1 kilometer depth. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, if there actually was 2 separate events, or if it's maybe some sort of revision. I'm gonna have to just kind of take it as is. So we had a 6 up here. Now this, I don't believe that this 6 was related to the 7, because remember we did have 2 different 6s happening in this region a little more than a week ago now. So this most likely here is going to be compensation movement happening from those 6s and the other activity. But that does still mean we have, of course, energy that's going to be coming in here through the seismic wave going down the coast here. And let's see, take a look at the Canada feed really quickly here, even though it is kind of annoying to have on here because it just kind of shows all of them in the past 30 days. So it's not really too helpful here unless we take it all the way down. And even then, we might as well just go to the websites themselves here, where I did notice something weird on here as well. So yesterday I was looking at this, I showed it on camera, that they had reported absolutely nothing from the 21st and the 22nd. But then here we are, now there's earthquakes populated for those 2 days, and going into the 23rd here. So we have had some stuff here, and yeah, I'm not even going to try to figure out what the magnitudes mean, because while you can go to their FAQ, their frequently asked questions here, and look at how they scale their magnitudes, and it just looks like a whole bunch of nonsense here. I'm not really sure what kind of magnitude system they use, but it's pretty confusing. So none of these are actually their true magnitude, whatever it says on here. I'm not actually entirely sure what all this means. So, in other words, the Canada feed is essentially useless. I'm just going to say that. I guess we could go ahead and look again on here. So this does have some stuff from Canada, where there doesn't look like to be a whole lot going on up here. So we'll see how that changes in the next few days, because it seems like we should definitely be seeing something happening in this area that's new. So let me just get that off of here because it's pretty much useless, like I said. So this 6 was likely compensation movement, and then the 7 here. Now we're still going to be looking at the next 7 to 10 days from when this struck. So basically going into very early March is the watch period for this, to see shallower, larger activity. Now it could be the same or it could be slightly bigger, but it's definitely going to be the same or greater size than the deep event going into these nearby regions. And then we did have a little bit of weird activity here in Japan, so it got struck with slightly deep activity on both sides of Japan here. So I thought that was a little bit strange. And since then, so I mean, this is looking at basically everything since that 7. There's been pretty much nothing happening in this region besides a couple more deep 5s and just a couple of things here and there. So again, we're just going to be waiting to see what happens from this 7, because from the 7, there's also going to be 6s going up to 1,000 kilometers away in different regions. So there's going to be 6s spreading out from here once we see what this is going to be doing. And looking at the west coast here, we've had a bit of an uptick again here, just kind of all the way across the entire region. So I could even look up a couple of these here really quickly just to kind of see what's going on there. And so basically what we're looking for here in California and kind of going into Nevada and Utah, there is a lot of things here that can potentially attract the seismic energy. So we have old volcano buttes, we have nuclear testing sites, we got all sorts of different things that usually appear at or around these locations. So I just want to quickly try to look a couple of these up here just to see if anything comes up here. So we're looking down here south, and well, we already have a massive solar farm right here. Interesting. And whatever this is, like some sort of junkyard. Oh wow, yeah, this is a pretty big junkyard here. So that's a little weird. What do we got over here? Got an old substation. Yeah, you'd be surprised at the kind of things you find when you start to look up these earthquakes here and just kind of see what's around. So let's just quickly move on. Don't want to spend too much time on this really, but we'll take a look at the 1.7 and this 1.1, kind of going across these regions here just to see what's going on. And it's not necessarily things around here causing earthquakes, it's more like something at the location, perforations in the crust, or perhaps very low frequencies from power generation that attract the seismic energy. So, looking over here, just pretty quickly here. And, I don't know really a lot of the geology in these areas, so there could be old, dormant, like volcano buttes or something, some sort of old magma chamber, ancient, you never really know. But okay, that's what we got over there. And then we'll just quickly take a look at what's over here in Utah. And while we have good news regarding Dutch Synths, it looks like he is back online and operational on twitch.tv. So that's good to see. I was starting to get pretty worried about that and thinking I'd have to try to pick up the pieces essentially on similar stuff that he does. So over here we got a lot of farmland. Nothing actually too out of the ordinary here. So just wanted to quickly look at that just in case there is anything interesting to look at. But there is quite a lot of movement going all the way across here, and of course even going on down into Texas. But other than that, there really hasn't been a whole lot going on since that 7, besides what we see going on up here, of course. So, and looking even at the antipode here, so bring that 7 back up here, so that antipode falls right into South America here. So we could definitely see some antipodal movement. That would be extremely likely to happen at this point. So just going to keep eyes on there. But so far, we're pretty early into this watch period, so it would be surprising to see anything going on yet. And then going on over here at the Italy quake map, looks like it's pretty simmered out here, so more or less it's kind of doing its thing. And they have yet again brought back the current year. So we're at 63 magnitude plus earthquakes in this area already. Compare that to last year's 200. And if we look at this biggest spike here in 2016, there was 1,175. So we seem to be on track for another spike in the data here, at least for this region. And then just kind of quickly glossing things off here with the volcanic activity, where things have more or less kind of stayed the same here. So a lot of the same locations with a lot of the same ash plume events here. Looks like Sabancaya, the one that yesterday was saying that there's no data for that yet. This is looking like it is intermittent, so it's kind of just on and off at this point. and we still have Indonesia, Philippines, and a little bit of something going on at Vanuatu. And then it looks like Pobocate has no further ash admissions here. So pretty much kind of rounds it off there. And yeah, I think that'll about do it for today's little update on that. There's some more videos I want to be making. I want to do a video covering all the kind of astrological and celestial events happening this year, because there's quite a few. There's like at least 2 different solar eclipses, 2 different lunar eclipses, pretty big astronomical alignment with the planets happening, I think, on the 28th this month. And there's a handful of other things happening that have not happened in a very long time. So just gonna hopefully get something together to make a video specifically for that, because that also definitely ties into things pretty well. And other than that here, I'm just kind of making slow progress on this right now, and I'm hoping I can just make the one final push that I need and get this thing out. But there's, I just want to make sure I do it correctly, because publishing a website like this, using all these data feeds, peer-reviewed papers, etc., I really got to make sure I give credit anywhere that it needs to be, and that there's, like I've already got the privacy policy and terms of service on here. So, there's a lot of different things that I got to worry about that I've never, had to deal with before. So just want to make sure everything's correct and try to do my best making this thing look good when it comes out, even though it is going to be technically in like a beta mode. So I'm going to be doing a lot more work on this thing even after that. But other than that, hope you all enjoyed this one, and I'll catch you all in the next.